What is going on, movie fans? James Patrick here with another ranked video. And in this one, we are going to be ranking the Predator franchise, which there are 8 films in the Predator franchise, which include the original films, the Alien vs. Predator editions, as well as the new Hulu installments, because I had to make sure to include the very freshly released Predator Killer of Killers, which just dropped on Hulu. In all these rankings, I am looking at 10 different scales to judge each of the films. Like, how are the characters, the Predator itself, the special effects, the acting, the directing, how enjoyable was this movie? And that gives each film a score on a scale of 0 to 100. And that's how I'm able to categorize these films from the absolute worst of the worst to the best of the best. As you know, as all of them, this is completely subjective, and I absolutely love seeing what your rankings are in the comment section below. So feel free to leave those, because I love contrasting those against mine. So let's get into it. And as always, we start with the worst, the absolute bottom of the barrel, which is the Predator. And I have to bring up the naming convention. The naming convention in the Predator films is pretty confusing. You have Predator, the Predator, Predators, Predator 2, not original. So you know what? We should probably look into fixing that moving forward. That being said, this movie is abysmal. It is inexcusable how bad this movie is. I gave it 10%, and there's only one reason it got 10% and not 0, which I'll get into. But the script is awful. The characters are atrocious. The CGI is terrible. The pacing and the story and the arc is just, nothing is great. It is all so bad. And I was initially excited for this because they were like, oh, Shane Drack's directing this. I'm like, oh, the guy from the original, the guy who brought us Monster Squad. Cool. Let's do that. You know what? Let's undo that. This is unforgivable, how atrocious this movie was. There are only 2 positives I can say about this movie. The first is clever casting of Jake Busey. And then the second is I did appreciate... on the casting of Jake Busey, the reason it's clever is because they cast him as the character son of his father, Gary Busey, who played Peter Keyes in Part 2. That was clever. Okay. The only other thing I liked is I appreciated that they came up with this idea that the predator species was gathering DNA to do genetic modifications on itself. I thought that was interesting, but it didn't deliver. Absolutely abysmal film at number 8. Okay, moving up to number 7, we have AVP Requiem, which was the second of the Alien vs. Predator films. Once again, not a lot to like here. This is cliche, one-note characters. Everyone's annoying, and there's no arcs. There's no real protagonist. So there's nothing to emotionally be interested in or invested in when you don't really care about any of the characters or anything that's happening. The film itself was so dark, and that's been well documented. But it was dark because the cinematographer backlit everything, thinking it made it look more creepy. And I think there's a balance here. I think there's a balance between what we show and what we don't show, and that point will come up in the next film that's in this series, because they did the exact opposite. But it was just real hard to see anything in this movie. They reused the sound effects from the 1986 Aliens. Like, they just copied and pasted the sound effects reused. It was, I understand it's the same studio, but it just felt like piracy, and it takes you out of it because you're like, I've heard that exact sound before, only I heard it 20 years earlier or 30 years earlier. Is there a story? Who cares? Is there a protagonist? Who cares? The only good thing I liked about this movie is I think this movie had the coolest Predator when you actually get to see it. This Predator is badass. He is intense. He's vicious. He's violent. He's ruthless. He does not care about the casualties that he leaves in his wake. He is on a mission, and he is determined to execute on that mission. That was really cool. But that's the only really cool thing about this movie, which is why it's at 7. All right, moving up to number 6, we have the next one in the series, which is, or I guess the first one of that, which is Alien vs. Predator. This launched, and this isn't much better than Requiem. A little better, not much. This launches with the I call it the Jurassic Park intros, where we spend 2 minutes on each character, showing them in their elements, so we get the context of who they are, as we bring them all together as this group of unlikely heroes about to go on an adventure. this is not a Predator film. It's not even an Alien film. I don't know what this was. Tonally, this was so far off of anything else in either of the franchises. A lot of script issues, a lot of things done for um just kind of cheap entertainment. There's no characters, there's no character arcs. On the plus side, there was three predators in the film. The predators had a unique design, and I liked how they each had their own unique faceplate. I thought that was kind of cool. When they did practical effects, the practical effects worked. When they did CGI, the CGI did not work. At some point during the movie, I paused it to go get a drink or something, maybe use the bathroom. And when I came back, I looked at the pause screen to realize that this movie was rated PG-13, because of course it was. So stupid. Um, when the predator finally unmasks himself, he looks more like a Muppet, not intimidating at all, looked more silly than anything. Like the original unmasking of the predator was really good and it was really built up. And this just felt like, I don't know why they changed the aesthetic. And maybe it could have just been the lighting, but it just, he did not look scary at all. He looked comical. Um, on that note, where Alien vs. Predator Requiem was way too dark, Alien vs. Predator was way too bright. There's no reason this movie should have been as high key lit as it was. It removes some of the drama, removes some of the mystery, and what makes these films. They're supposed to be sci-fi horror, but when you overlight everything, we're removing part of that element. All right, moving up to number five. Number five in the series, we have Predators. And don't get mad at me when I say this, but I actually initially enjoyed this when I saw it in theaters. However, I never felt compelled to rewatch it. And that should have been a clue, because when I rewatched it for this, I realized that this movie actually has a lot of issues. It rated at a 50%. One, there's a lot of logic holes in the script. Two, the characters and the casting is really, really bad. I mean, from Danny Trejo, who's always just going to be Danny Trejo. You can't separate the actor from the character. To let's create a character that's like Dutch, but not Dutch, but cast Adrian Brody as him. And he's so bad in this movie. It is so frustrating to watch these characters play, or these actors play these characters and just completely miss the mark. The script had a ton of issues, and really it just played out like the greatest hits. Let's just copy the fight scenes, let's copy the score, let's just copy what worked in the other movies and try to cram it into this movie without trying to make it original. Then there's weird things like the Lawrence Fishburne character was completely unnecessary and only served as a plot device. A lot of pacing issues. Act 2 of this movie is painfully slow to get through. Practical effects were good. CGI really bad, especially for when this movie was made. Really bad editing cuts, kind of that fast action cut scenes where you don't see anything in the fight scenes, but it makes it look like something's happening. And really just zero tension. You don't care about the characters because there's no character buildup. And the whole like gotcha thing with Topher Grace's character was just stupid. It was unnecessary, which kind of killed the ending. But the Predator design was cool. Some decent action. All right, maybe this should have been number 6, and maybe AVP should have ranked at number 5, but it is what it is. Not that great of a movie, and I can't say I feel compelled to ever watch it again. All right, moving up to number 4. All right, we're starting to get a little better now. Starting to get some decent scores. We have Predator 2. Now, this had double the budget of the original film. And I appreciate the opening where they started the camera on the jungle and pans up to the city of Los Angeles. That was cool. Now, this movie is definitively a 90s movie, and everything that is about 90s, which is that like maximum extremism and violence in sound, in fast moving cameras, like everything was done is of its time, which makes sense because the original film was so 80s in how it was done. But there's some issues with this movie. Now, this movie has gotten more positive response over time, but it's understandable why people did not like it at the time. One, casting Danny Glover, and I like Danny Glover, but casting Danny Glover as the lead against the Predator doesn't really make sense. And particularly because how did Danny Glover, who is not Arnold Schwarzenegger, kill the Predator at the end? Because he doesn't outsmart him, doesn't use his brains. He kills him because he kind of outmuscles him. And that makes no sense at all. Arnold barely got through the Predator, and that's because he outsmarted the Predator, not because he outmuscled him. This just didn't make sense in how that character was able to take down this Predator. Also, why didn't the Predator just take him out at the beginning of the movie? Had him dead to rights, and then he just kind of jumped off and vanished. Well, so the movie can happen. That's why. The dialogue is clunky. Once again, it's very 90s, very early 90s. A lot of stuff is rinse and repeat from the original, including the score. Like they just took the score and they just played it over and over and over again in the sequel. But Bill Paxton, awesome. So good. So fun in this movie. The special effects got improved in this movie. Well, they had a bigger budget. But that kind of got dulled a little bit with how the film was cut and edited together. All right. But there are some really cool shots, like the Predator walking and you see his reflection appear in the puddle on the street. That is such a cool shot. The Predator getting struck by lightning was really cool, which I'm not sure how he survived through that, like completely unscathed. But it's a cool shot. But I think the reason this movie has gotten more positive reviews over time is it's a fun movie. It's not great. It has its flaws, but it was fun to watch, and it's kind of fun to rewatch. Especially Bill Paxton, who absolutely crushes in this movie. All right, moving up to number 3. All right, we have Predator Killer of Killers, which just dropped. I had so much fun watching this movie. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant animation. It was so fun to watch. Great pacing. Like it was an anthology kind of packed into one movie together. But great pacing. I like that added to the mythology and the story of the predator species and how they hunt and how they have hunted over time. The unique character designs of the different predators. How the animation style shifted a little bit between the different storylines. I thought was really clever. Okay, so there's not really much of a story. Thus, none of the characters really have arcs, with the exception of maybe one of them. But it was so fun. It was just an action-packed, super, super fun movie to watch that was so brilliantly constructed. Like so much time and energy was put into the animation and how this movie was visually presented that I thought was absolutely outstanding. So solid number 3. All right. Moving up to number 2, we have Dan Trachtenberg's one of 3 films in the Predator series. The third is to be released later this year. Every time I've watched the movie Prey, I've liked it more. And I'll be honest with you. Don't get mad at me for this. There was only 1 point separating Prey from the number 1 spot. 1 point. There's so much to love about this movie. The cinematography, number 1, easily the most gorgeous of all the films. The best character development in any of the films. Rich sound design, an original score, which we haven't had an original score since the first one. The acting is not only the acting's flawless. You have brilliant character arcs, actual depth to these characters. You actually feel for these characters. The only downsides of this movie, and there aren't many, is because this was slated for a direct to streaming, you're going to have some cuts when it comes to budget, and thus things are going to be done with CGI that should have been done with practical effects. And it's clear when they did that. The only other critique I have of this film at all is Act 3 was a little dark. The final battle scenes was a little dark and it was a little hard to track. I remember I turned off all the lights in my house just to be able to see it. And that's just splitting hairs. This is such a good movie. And honestly, every time I watch this movie, I like it more. So I'm guessing if I watched it again, it's possible that this one would take the number one spot. But number one, Arnie, baby, 1987, the original one. I mean, what is not to love about this film? A great score, Stan Winston, and just the phenomenal design of the Predator, the ultra 80s machismo action film with the one-liners and the explosions. I mean, where Predator 2 was just definitively 90s in its uh, maximalism, like this was so 80s in its macho heroism. Um, Perfect pacing. This movie was perfectly edited and cut together. There's not a down second in this movie. The second you start, all of a sudden you're at the end of the movie and you're wondering where the last 90 minutes went. The practical effects are great. Yeah, the CGI when they use it does feel a little dated. All right, fine. But they did something kind of interesting that I'm really surprised with. They gave a bunch of characters, which should have been just one note, no name, copy and paste characters, and they gave them nuance. And I thought that was amazing how they did that. You actually care about the characters. You actually get upset when characters are taken by the Predator. That's not an easy thing to do. The other thing that I loved about this, the Predator is fallible. And that was such an interesting choice that the filmmakers made. The Predator makes mistakes. The Predator suffers most particularly from hubris. And that was so well put together in Act 3, where you have this montage where Arnold Schwarzenegger's character Dutch is prepping all the traps, and he's like setting up the spikes and pulling up the pulley system. And he's, working on his bow and arrow, like he's getting ready for this final battle. That's what he's doing in his montage scene. He's the Rocky. But what's the Predator doing during that same time? Making trophies, polishing trophies, celebrating his success, celebrating his imminent victory that he sees. I love this. It is such a small thing, but it really adds to why Arnold was able to tip the scales at the end. And he didn't tip the scales with sheer brawn or might, but with cleverness and playing into the Predator's arrogance and hubris. And I thought that was so well portrayed. I also loved how they hid the Predator for so much of the film until the final reveal. It made that final reveal so impactful. I think, when I look at all the sci-fi movies and all the horror movies I've seen, like number one is obviously Aliens. I've seen that movie hundreds and hundreds of times. But number two, pretty close, has to be this one, the original Predator. And I think a big reason to that is because of how well cut together this film is and the pacing of this film. It is such an enjoyable, fun movie to watch. I had a smile on my face watching it for the 500th time when I was making this list, just as much as I did the first time when I saw it when I was just a kid, probably 10 years old or something like that. So there it is. Number 8 through number 1. I'm curious what your rankings are. Put them in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to the channel, for subscribing to the channel, for sharing this video with a friend. We appreciate you all, and we'll catch you in the next ranked video. Take care, everyone.